The Irish Rally Podcast is brought to you in association with Tech and Tools, PFT Travel, SVS Productions, Rally Connection, Lions of Limerick and Hierophant.
Welcome. We're here, and as you can see, in the car with Andrew Nesbitt. Andrew, thank you so much for being here with me today and for giving up your time and literally for letting us jump in the car with you for the afternoon.
It's fantastic. It's an unknown journey today because we don't really know what we're going to talk about.
I would have an idea of where I would like to go, but at the same time, Andrew, you're well known for being a character, so God knows what we'll end up talking about.
Hopefully it'll be interesting for everyone.
I can imagine it is going to be very interesting. Andrew, the way I always start these podcast episodes is by asking about people's early days, you know, the beginning of life for Andrew, or what Andrew was like as a kid, or the things you were into, or what your childhood was like, essentially. Can you tell us a wee bit about that?
That's taken me back a long way, isn't it?
We're going back a few years anyway.
Well, I suppose if I go back to the start, I remember going to Darkley Primary School, which is just outside Keady. Mm-hmm. And I remember going there the first day to school. I was just a little bit over 4 years old. And that was really the start of my memory of growing up and living in the village of Darkley. And I remember watching people coming to a guy's house to get their rally cars fixed. It was a guy called Andrew Nesbitt at the time, and he took me to my first rally when I was like 9 years old.
Okay.
But in between being 6 and 9, I remember my dad one day up at the farm in Donegal beside McKelvey's Grove, we got stuck in the snow.
Right.
And my father says to me, Andrew, you get in there and drive the car. I says, I can't drive, Dad. I'm only 6. I can't drive. He says, you have to learn sometime. Well, little did I know I was going to learn to drive the car that day. So we got the car into first gear, and he opened the boot and stood in the boot, started bouncing around, and that was my first memory of driving a car. And with the snow then, I went down the lane sideways. It was hilarious. And he was shouting at me to stop, so I didn't even know how to get the car clutched. Yeah. It was hilarious. But that was my first memory of driving. And then, you know, after that, I really started getting a love for sport and speed, and it came out of nowhere. And then at 9 years old, I remember my neighbour Jimmy McKee coming over to my dad to get the loan of a van to go and take animals to the mart in Newton and Hamilton. And he says, sure, the young fella will drive you. And Jimmy says, sure, he can't drive. Oh, he can drive, surely. He'll drive, you go with him and he'll drive the van in. So I drive the van. I take the van into Newton Hamilton Mart with the livestock in the boot, back the van. And we offloaded the animals. And Jimmy says, Andrew, you go and park the van now, son. You know, 9 years old. So I went to park the van, and there was a space right outside the Church of Ireland Church in Newtown Hamilton. Lovely space. So I reversed into the space. And lo and behold, before I knew it, this policeman came over and arrested me.
What did you say you were after?
I was 9. I was 9 years old. So that was me arrested for the first time. And I'm going,
for the first time?
Oh, I'm sorry, I was only parking the van. Who owns this van? I says, my father owns the van. Go and get your father. I couldn't get my father because he was at home. I'd driven the van into the mart. So it was very funny in a sense, because the space I took that day, there was people coming to get married.
Right.
And the only reason there was space into the churchyard was to allow them to come in with the wedding car. Of course, Andrew, he blocks the parking space. So that was my first memory of driving vehicles, and obviously
On the main road.
arrested at the ripe young age of 9 years old.
I mean, that's one for the memory books, to be fair, Andrew. I can see why that one stuck out.
So that was the first time, and then I think when I was 14, I remember Jimmy McKee's brother Joey saying he had a garage, and he had this hearse, and he was repairing it. And he says, Andrew, you wouldn't take that wee car out, like the hearse, take the hearse out the road there and see if she's going okay now. I'm after putting 4 new plugs in it. And so what did I do? I headed for Keady. And I was arrested again in the hearse. And I was 14.
That you stole it, though.
I know. I actually got arrested again. And I'm going, I'm not having much luck. I'd be better getting my license first, wouldn't I?
You might be.
So all of these things sort of helped me in motorsport. You know, I really had a great love for driving. But all of those years, like being a young boy, getting stopped by the police and getting arrested, and of course, I lived in South Armagh, and yeah, it was pretty lawless at the time. You were fit to drive nearly wherever you wanted, whenever you wanted.
Yeah.
And no one would have stopped you. Because I knew if I could get outside Keady and up into, the top roads of Newton Hamilton, they probably wouldn't chase me anyway.
Yeah. So would you have been driving the whole time, Andrew, between 9 and 14 and right up to 17? Like, would you these are the two biggest memories of getting caught as such?
If it moved at all, if it had a wheel and wheels, I drove it from I was 6.
And it all started that day in the snow.
It all started that day in the snow, and I remember so well because I was nervous.
Yeah.
But then I got over that, and life took its own journey after that in terms of my motorsport.
Yeah.
But the whole South Armagh thing was something else.
I would imagine that was pretty tough to grow up in, Andrew.
It was. I seen too much. Yeah, I came across a lot of bad situations in my time. And, I started working in refrigeration when I was 16. And I was working for A&N Chiliday down in Tassa, and I remember starting my job there. And between I was 16 and 19, I had seen so much trouble. There was people, a lot of my neighbours unfortunately lost their lives through the troubles. And when I was 19, I was actually in a bomb explosion myself.
Jeez.
In Market Hill.
Right.
And I was in a butcher shop fixing a cold room for a guy called John Muldrew at the time. And lo and behold, he came in and he says, Andrew, he says, there's a bomb scare outside. I says, really? I didn't really think much of it. And he comes back in, he says, I think it might be for real today. So I walked out anyway and looked up the street and down the street. There was no one there. And I said, John, I think we better run. So we started running, and I think I got about 25 metres. The bomb went off and blew us underneath the lorry that was sitting parked. It was a Coca-Cola lorry sitting parked at the corner, and everything went up, and you could hear the silence, and then all of a sudden engines and gearboxes and bits and pieces started landing around you. And so as a result of that, I'm quite deaf.
Yeah.
Because I had a lot of trouble with my inner ears after that.
It's funny, I always remember you talking about your hearing, Andrew, and saying, I can't, sorry, say that again, my hearing's not great or whatever, but I never had any idea that it was because of a bomb.
Yeah, that's what happened. And, I had seen too many things. I came across different accidents where people had lost their lives in the Troubles. And I remember coming home one day, it was after that, and saying to my dad, I says, I'm out of here. Because I was just getting too close to bad situations, and that bomb really set me off.
Aye.
It's a life-changing experience in itself.
It must have impacted you hugely, Andrew.
It did, but at the same time, it created an opportunity for me, because I went to Dublin shortly after that, and I'm standing, believe it or not, at the urinal in the toilets in Dublin, in Sex Hotel, and I'm talking to this gentleman. We were down at a refrigeration show, and he says, are you down at the refrigeration conference today? And I said, yes, I am. He says, would you be interested in coming to work in Dublin? And I said, I don't think so. What I didn't realise, the amount of money that they were going to offer me to come and work in Dublin was 3.5 times more than what I was earning.
Okay.
And I remember clearly, I was earning £18.46 a week. That was my week's wages. Mm-hmm. And this man, two of them actually, Jim Keating from Cross Refrigeration and Dermot Watch from Cross Refrigeration, and they offered me £72. And I'm going,
yes,
I have to go. I have to go. And that was me moving away, one, from the Troubles, but two, it created a new world for me within the refrigeration business that we're now in. Mm-hmm. And they were so good to me. I was so lucky. I made the move at the right time, and I suppose I feel I'm like the cat with the 9 lives. I've escaped a lot of bad situations.
Yeah.
And here we are.
You're still here telling the tales. It's a fascinating. Obviously, that's the whole point of these conversations on this podcast, is to actually find out about, as much as we can anyway, about the lives of people that we've looked up to and adored for so long. But I mean, you truly have come through some crazy situations, regardless of rallying.
Well, yes, I unfortunately, I seen the Troubles, when I was 14 right through to 19. It was only 5 years, but that was the height of the Troubles in Northern Ireland. And my neighbour was shot, and that had a serious influence on me as well. And then getting blown up in the bomb just moved me one step towards, I have to get out of here.
Yeah.
And I did, and I'm so grateful that I was able to go to Dublin and work there. But at the same time, I've always been involved. Well, talk about the peace movement. We talk about my kids went to integrated schools in Northern Ireland at the time. My friend Raymond Donnell and I, along with a number of other people, set up the first integrated school in Armagh, which was a great thing to do, where one child was a Protestant, the other one was Roman Catholic, and they all had to sit beside each other. And everyone that went to that school was 50-50.
Yeah.
And it was the same with the teachers. So I think the fact that I had gone to Darkley School, it was integrated in itself.
Yeah.
Everyone went to that school, both Roman Catholic and Protestant. And to this day, we're all friends.
Yeah.
And I think it's a great thing to do, is to have your kids mix with the opposite religion.
Yeah. Why do you feel like that's so important, Andrew? To make sure, basically, because that would have been, I mean, that's blazing a trail back in those days in Northern Ireland. Why was that so important for you to kind of do that?
I knew, or I felt I knew, that I was so comfortable and happy with the friends that I grew up with in school. And I think the feeling was mutual, and to this day we're all friends, and we always helped each other. And when we were going to rallies, we went to rallies together. we would go to Crossmaglen, for example. Ronan McNamee, who then became my sponsor through Cuisine de France, sat with me. Brian Murphy from Crossmaglen. And all of these guys from the opposite side of religion, we all got on really well together. And the only thing that we were really interested in was sport. And it happened to be motorsport. But before that, and I don't think too many people know that, I was in tug of war. And I pulled for Rich Hill tug of war team. And we went to, we travelled all over the world competing at international level. And at that time, you had to be so strict with your diet, no alcohol at all. And we were, training 5 days a week and pulling on the Saturday, and on the Sunday we go and run the Mourne Mountains, 10 miles over the Mournes every Sunday before lunch. So all of a sudden you were, at the time, an athlete. Because it was a very, very good sport to be involved in. So strict and so competitive. And so when we compete against Spain, Italy, Germany, the Dutch, Holland, it was just amazing. And everyone had the same mindset. So that was probably the start of my competitive world. Yes.
And Andrew, obviously, to be able to do sort of any of the things that you've done in your lifetime, but even if whether it's the sport and the tug of war, or whether it's the coming away from a bomb and actually being able to kind of keep moving on with your life, there's obviously a huge level of strength and resilience that's within you. Are you aware of that?
Some people would say that to me, and I think going back to being a young fella living in South Armagh, when I was going to school, I used to have to walk 4 or 5 miles every day to feed my father's animals, and then I would get a lift home at night. But I was always running or competing at something. And the tug of war for me taught me how to be very competitive, but to never give in or give up. Because you're holding that rope. In order to win the competition, you can't let go.
You have to hold on.
And you must stay longer than the opposition to win. That's the way it is. And that taught me, when others might think of throwing in the towel, it's not within me to do that. I feel there's an inner strength there that keeps me right. And so I've brought that into my business, I've brought it into my sport through the years.
And do you think, Andrew, that was one of the questions I ask all the time is, it's around the idea of the chicken or the egg, what came first? Do you think that resilience is in you, or do you think some of the experiences in your life have kind of taught you to be that person?
That's a very good question. I think I had to teach myself to be the person that I became. But I never wanted to failure. And when I started working in Dublin, I remember going to work on refrigeration equipment. That was way technically more difficult than I was capable of doing at the time. But I would then learn, I must master this to be the best at it. And I would work very hard at teaching myself all the small detail that was needed to be successful in my refrigeration business. When I arrived in Dublin, I didn't have that, so I had to teach myself to do that. And then it became the norm. And the same in sport. I was so dedicated to my sport. Like the food, I would never take alcohol at all. And I remember my brother-in-law, William Hughes, who's married to my sister Caroline, tried to give me a little drop of alcohol at Christmas in a glass of orange juice. And I went ballistic, because if I had taken that little snip, I'd have broken my contract with myself not to do this. And I was so cross. Because when I decided that I would not have alcohol for 12 months, then there was no alcohol. It's zero tolerance. And the same when we won the championships back in 2000, 2002, I had no alcohol going into those years.
Isn't it mad? Like,
crazy.
The discipline,
the detail of that. But
that's what's needed, Andrew, to set you apart.
That is, yes. And then you have to compete against your opposition. And I just loved that. I loved the whole psychology. The sports psychology, I think, we brought to another level when we got to motorsport.
Do you think it's harder to compete against yourself or other people?
I race myself. I go to the start line of the Donegal rally, and there are 140 people in that race. Every one of them want to beat me. That's okay. But what they don't realise, it's me that wants to beat me.
You're the biggest competitor you have.
So it's irrelevant to what they think. I am there to race me. And how I do that is by measuring the detail of how I control every stage with my navigator, James O'Brien. He will call the notes, but I'll refine what I'm doing. And I can tell you within a quarter of a second, a mile, whether I'm beating myself or not. And usually the result is pretty good.
I would say you have a good enough track record now, Andrew. I would say I have to agree there.
So yes, so when I come to race Bertie Fisher and Austin McHale, Derek McGarty and Eugene Donnelly and all of these guys, I'm not there to really race them. I'm there to race me. And I think that's what makes me think differently. Because if I don't do it really well, I know I haven't put the commitment into it that I need to put into it. So when I go to the start line of High Glen, Low Glen, it's how fast can I take every corner in this stage. The time talk will tell you whether you won or lost. That's fine. But I would like to think before I get to the finish line of that stage that I've have a really good crack at it.
And Andrew, one of the things I always remember about your driving style, and sort of even actually just what people would have said about you when I was younger, was that, that boy has no fear, that boy's clean mad. Do you think is there an element of that was that's just your personality, like, and you are just, go full tilt and that's it? Or do you think was there a case of, you had seen such crazy things in your lifetime, particularly say in your childhood and your teenage years growing up in Northern Ireland? Like, do you think because you had seen so much hardship that you were kind of like, life's for living, there's no point in being afraid of these things?
Well, I've been asked that question a few times. People would say to me, "Oh, you've no fear. A fool has no fear." I have fear. But I think my fear is at a different level to most people. If you understand me.
I think so,
So when I'm committed to driving really hard on a rally stage, people say, I know it's probably scaring them a little bit, but that's my comfort zone. I get into the car, I belt up, put my helmet on, I feel as if I'm sitting in the house, in the living room, in the armchair.
Mm-hmm.
And when I'm in that place, I'm in a good place.
Uh-huh.
And I do have to say, and TV programs show this, how James O'Brien sits there, I'll never know. I couldn't sit there.
Yeah. No, that's it. The navigators are different.
I just couldn't do it.
Yeah.
But he can do it. Now, I know when he raises his voice sometimes, he feels we're on the edge.
Mm-hmm.
But you'll often see me putting my thumb up and say, giving him a thumbs up, saying, "It's okay, James.
You have it.
I have it.
Yeah.
I'm in control here."
Mm-hmm.
Because sometimes he feels I'm just over the edge a little.
Yeah.
And
that wee thumb will settle him back down again.
the thumb settles him
Mm-hmm.
every time. Until the next time.
The next corner.
So, but it's all about lines and being comfortable.
Yeah. And do you think that comfort in the chaos came from such sort of a chaotic childhood? Not within home or anything, but within the environment that was around everybody at that time in Northern Ireland?
I think, I'd have to sit here and say that I believe in God.
Mm-hmm.
And I think He has guided me through a lot of situations, and I feel that I'm here for a reason.
Mm-hmm.
When I was 19, there was an old lady that lived beside my mother in Darkley called Mary Ann Monaghan, and she had gone into my mother, Bella, and said to her, "Would you ask your son to come and see me?" So my mother phoned me in Dublin, and she says, "Mary Ann wants to see you." And I says, "What does Mary Ann want to see me for, Mum?" She says, "Well, she's 92 and she's something for you." And I'm going, "Okay, well, sure, I'll be up the road at the weekend." No, she says she wants to see you today. What I didn't realise was she was coming to the end of her life, and she wanted to pass on something to me. And she sat me down. I'll always remember this. She had a wee woolly hat on her, and sat me down, and she says, "Andrew, I want to pass on the charm to you for the for sprained ankles and legs and what have you. Will you accept it?" And I said, "I would." And she told me at the time, I have to pass it on to a boy or a man, and whenever the day comes, Andrew, you will have to pass it on to a girl.
Okay.
You will know when the time is right.
Yeah.
And that was probably my start of my journey in believing in God the way I do.
Yeah. I would say there's a huge spirituality then there, Andrew, like a big guide.
Yeah. Because I've been through a lot of difficult situations, as you know, and I always come out the better for it, the other side.
Yeah. One of the things that I have kind of realised in life, and I'm not even here that long, but like I have a huge faith as well, and I've always had conversations with friends, about faith or not faith or whatever, and I honestly have always said, like, I don't know how people get through tough times without believing that there's somebody or something helping them.
Yes.
But we were chatting about the charm. So have you found yourself using that over the years?
Yes.
Or is it still something that you...
No, I use it. I don't advertise it. The fact,
until today.
Until today. But yeah, our neighbour in Donegal hurt herself there a couple of weeks ago, and we did the charm and everything worked out okay.
Brilliant.
So, all of that.
And do you feel... you know, can you sort of, do you feel like you're doing the work, or do you feel like somebody's working through you?
It's through me.
Aye.
It's not me. I'm only the messenger.
Uh-huh. And can you hear things, Andrew, or is it just your hands are guided, or your, you know, whatever, you just feel guided more than anything?
I feel totally guided, and I think, yeah, it takes the journey through my hands to heal whatever injuries they have.
Yeah.
But so when Mary Ann sat me down to go through how to do it all, she communicated all the information to me and passed it over to me. She then left it to me after that. It was amazing.
And have you...
An amazing gift to have.
Yeah, like have you... I would imagine that you think about her often. There's a big connection there.
I do think of her every time I put my hands to someone to try and heal them. And look, it was handed down to her, so it was.
Yeah.
When she was a young girl.
Yes.
So this has been going on for hundreds of years.
Yeah. And did you ever ask her, like, why you or how she picked you? Have you any idea how you're going to...
I don't know. I don't know why she picked me. I was a neighbour, and I was always kind to her, and she was very kind to me, and like, she could have given it to some of her sons and daughters, but she didn't. She passed it on to
why
me.
You?
Why me? I don't know.
That's so interesting.
And
now,
for me,
you picking, or deciding, or knowing.
I will decide who I will hand this charm over to when the time's right.
Yeah.
And what you do is you have to pick. I'll have to find someone with a similar faith.
Yes.
And because they have to believe. If you don't believe, you don't get.
No.
It won't work.
No, faith is everything. It really is. And you know, one of the major things that kind of struck me there as you were chatting, when I go back to and think about the strength and resilience thing, you mentioned that sort of, not a fear of failure, but like you did not want to fail at anything. Was that always there, or you know, was it just sort of like, say for example that day in the snow when you were 6 and your dad just said get in and drive, and you just had to do it? There was no option to fail at that because the car had to be moved. You were the only person there to help him.
Yeah.
You know, do you think it was at moments like that instilled that in you, or again was it just sort of in you to want anything you put your hand to, you want to do well?
Well, I learned very young when I was training to be a refrigeration engineer. If I didn't do it right, it was never going to be right.
Yeah.
And you have to go through a process of perfection, is probably the word. You have to go through the detail to get it right. So all of the refrigeration systems that I'd been installing, I always had probably OCD.
Yeah.
It had to be to perfection. Everything I did in my work. And that then followed through to the motorsport as well. And so when we set up our rally team, and the people that were working with me on the rally team, everything had to be perfection.
Yes.
And if it was, everything else worked out.
Yeah.
For the best, usually.
Do you find that hard though, Andrew? Like, that's a tough way to live. Perfectionism is tough.
Yes, sometimes you have to give it a wide berth. Say, look, you can't be living it on the edge to perfection all of the time.
Yeah.
You just cannot do it.
Have you found that balance naturally over time, or you know, was there a moment where you kind of realised, I actually just don't have the energy to keep this going anymore? You know, something has to change here.
No, I don't think it's I don't think much about it, to be honest with you. It's there all the time.
Yeah. And it
Used to it.
obviously, it is something, though, Andrew, that has stood to you, because if you look at whether it's rallying, anything you've done in your personal life or career, work, like, you do everything so well.
Well, it's not that it's intentional, it's just the way it is.
Mm-hmm.
I don't go out to say, this has to be the way it's going to be. That's going to happen naturally if that's the way you are.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So you don't have to worry about making it better or making it worse.
Yeah. It just is.
It will be what it will be.
And so basically it is just a part of your personality.
Yes. Like
just
driving these corners here. I'm sitting here trying to find lines through them, but I'm trying to refine them.
Yeah.
And that's what I do, even in the rally car. How can I straighten that road up?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'll take you on some of the journey today over Knockalla, and there's corners there, and you straighten them up.
Yeah.
But there's corners there.
Yeah.
And that's what the sport has done for me.
And your brain must never stop, Andrew. I mean, it must genuinely be just thinking and going all the time, is it?
No. I love going to sleep.
Okay, did you get a wee break?
I love going to sleep to get switched off.
Yeah.
Because as soon as I'm up and running, it's non-stop.
Mm-hmm.
It is non-stop. That's just the way it is. I'm thinking about the next project or the next detail or the next whatever. It's non-stop. I think we found the road.
We did. So we're turning into what is the beginning of the Glen stage. Andrew, like, there's something very, very special about most of the stages in Donegal, but you have always loved Glen. And you've specifically loved it in this direction where you come down into the village.
Yes, well, I think there's a lot of time to be made up on this stage by straightening the road up.
Yeah. Okay.
That's what I was speaking about earlier. The detail of all of these corners. Now I know where I am. This is the start line here.
Yes.
Now, this corner up ahead, I take this flat as hard as I can go. But normally people would brake and slow up for this. It's flat.
But you're cutting straight through the bend.
See the crest?
Yeah.
You're
Straight
into the
over.
air there.
Yeah. And I mean, the surface here, Andrew, as well, is just, the surface is so, like,
abrasive.
Like, it's perfect conditions, really, isn't it?
Donegal's roads are fantastic, especially in the wet. Because the surface is such that it drains a lot of the water away.
And everybody else is afraid to, but I would guarantee that you have no fear in the wet.
Well, this is where they always question me. Like going onto that stage with slicks on in the wet doesn't make much sense to most people. It makes a lot of sense to me.
You just trust that the grip is there.
The grip is here.
Yeah.
Well, if there's some shiny tar, there's no grip. But for the best part, there's loads of grip on this road here. I love these corners here. Just comes tightness around here. Do you miss the rallying?
I do, Andrew. I really do. Now, for a long time I didn't. I was actually quite afraid of rallying, Andrew.
Where are you?
Not necessarily of accidents or any of that. It was more, once I stopped, I found it very hard to focus on anything else, really. And I found it took me a long number of years to be able to essentially give it up, be happy with life outside of rallying. And for years there, I was afraid to actually even contemplate driving a rally car again, because I thought, I can't go through that again.
Yes.
It's settling in me now. I'm starting to trust myself a wee bit more and know that I could probably do both. But it's difficult, isn't it, Andrew? Like when you adore it so much, to just be able to let it go the Monday after the event.
Well, I have been able to do that
Yes.
because you have to let it go. It's a sport.
Mm-hmm.
It's there for you to enjoy, but it can't be your whole life.
Were you always able to do that, Andrew, or is that something that you
I
were
was
able to do later?
I wasn't always able to do it. It probably took me a lot of time to learn there's more to life than
Yes.
motorsport.
Yeah.
But there's more to life than work as well.
Yes. Yeah.
So you have to have a balance of sport, no matter what it is. Let it be horse riding, let it be driving rally cars, let it be pulling tug of war. Whatever your sport is, cycling, swimming, you name it. It's important for everyone to have sport.
Yeah.
And my uncle Jimmy, in 1948, he was in the Olympic Games. And I remember him saying to me, Andrew, you've got to have a sport, because I was helping my father in South Armagh, as you know. He was an international livestock agent back in the day.
Yes.
Where we transported the livestock from the north of the border to the south of the border. Or more commonly known as a pig smuggler. So my uncle would come home and he'd say, Andrew, you've got to have a sport. You can't be, dealing with pigs all your life. Yet my father wanted me dealing with pigs all my life, but that's just the way it was.
And what sport was he in the Olympics for?
He threw the discus.
Wow, okay.
He was a discus thrower.
Yeah.
And he was the British champion. He held the record up until Jeff Capes beat his record in London. And
That's an amazing story through the family line. Like.
I've a lot of his trophies. Left them all to me because I was the next sports person in the house.
Yeah.
In his eyes.
So you could see outside of
Work.
all that you knew. Yes. You know, most people just tunnel vision. I do this one thing and that's it.
Yeah.
But you could see outside of that, and your uncle could see that you had that ability as well.
Correct. And I was so lucky to get away from the work, we call it,
Yeah.
and have a sport.
Yeah.
And it's the same with rugby today. I love rugby. I do a lot of work with the Armagh rugby team, and they're now up in 1A rugby in Ireland. And I put a lot of effort into the sports psychology around that with the lads. And it's paid off.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm really pleased for them.
Well, you would have a huge amount of, you mentioned sports psychology already, and you would have a huge amount of experience and knowledge and wisdom to kind of pass on there, Andrew.
Yeah. See this corner here?
Yes.
How hard do you think we can take this?
I would say fairly hard. There's a lot of grip there, like.
A lot of grip. Look at it
This is
through the
just
bridge here.
a beautiful bit of road, isn't it?
Oh, look at this. Oh, chips. Oh, them bouncing up around the new car.
It's
This stage is so fast.
Yeah.
This is where you make the time.
It's a long time actually since I've even driven this stage, just for the crack, and it really is a special bit of road, isn't it?
It is. Unfortunately, the roadmen have been out tarring.
They have. Fortunately for the locals, but unfortunately for us today.
Yeah. You see the telephone pole in the distance, or the electric pole?
Yeah.
That's where the 90-degree corner is, and you don't slow up once you get to that pole.
Okay, so that's it.
Now, but you see it away back there. So I just do not come out of it until you get there.
And then a bit of break.
So there's 1 or 2 seconds saved already.
Yeah. You know what, Andrew? Actually, now that I do this stage, I remember there's memories coming back to me. I had the privilege of doing this stage with Brian Murphy sitting on with me, and we were doing it this way round, and he actually passed on some unbelievable wisdom about certain corners there too.
Round the pole.
Yes.
Okay.
And I would say some of it could have come from you as well. A few experiences between yourself and Brian through the years. You did Donegal a few times together, didn't you?
Yeah, Brian was my first navigator in Donegal. He was brilliant. Then he went to Austin McHale. At which time then James came on board. At a time I was actually having trouble getting a navigator because some of them thought I was maybe driving beyond my limits.
Isn't that mad now to think back on that? And I mean, to be fair, you can understand it as well. You know, you were pushing.
What can you understand?
Well, I can understand being afraid sitting on with you because
This is McGardy's corner. He went off there. You'll notice in my pace notes, I name certain corners where people have gone off.
yeah.
That's McGardy's there.
And is that to kind of frighten you, Andrew, to kind of pull you back and remind you that actually something can go wrong here?
Yeah, if good drivers have gone off on corners such as that, you know it's likely
So
to
that's a
get
wee
you as well.
reality check, yeah.
Now, from here, the whole way down into the village is flat.
That is literally what Brian Murphy passed on to me here, and it's something that blew my mind because I see corners, like, but you don't.
Oh,
Brian didn't.
Well, there's a corner here. We do have to slow up and maybe just drop it down one gear here, and from here, the whole way to the bottom of this hill is where the time's made.
Yes. Because I believe even that corner that we're looking at, we probably can't see it too clearly now, but once this car passes, like, now as we look at that looks like a corner, but that is flat.
I would be taking that somewhere around 130 mile an hour.
Yeah, I remember that, and I actually, Brian spoke about Austin as well, and you hear, like, where this is flat out. Do not lift for this corner.
Just here.
Yeah.
And there's two corners. That's the first one.
Mm-hmm.
And here's the second one coming. And you're on the rev limiter through both of them.
Yeah. And that is mind blowing.
Look.
Because they're corners, like, you know, but in a rally car, hug the side of the road and
Now, see this corner here?
Yeah.
There's another two corners here. I don't change. I slow down, but I don't change gear. Would you believe that? I'm still in sixth gear.
You're still pushing 60.
Still in sixth gear, the whole way through this.
And are you left foot braking at that point?
Never touch it.
Never touch it?
No.
So just slightly lift off the accelerator?
No, that's it. That's where the time's made.
Yeah. So there'll be people listening to this now, Andrew, and making notes for next year.
Now, see in here, there's a number of little corners, but there's a rock in here.
Yes.
And it's really connected to Mother Earth. But if you don't know it's there,
a lot of damage can be done.
A lot of damage is done.
And again, like,
I just love this stage.
I know, like
there were the rocks just there.
Yeah. And to remember that kind of detail, Andrew, again, just shows your love for the stage too, doesn't it? Like, you know, every millimetre of the road, I would say.
Every millimetre of this road, and funny, I think sometimes I memorise the stage. I don't know whether that's a good thing or not, but I can.
Well, it would be fairly controversial in the sense that a lot of people would say that if you memorise it, you're not listening to the notes. And when you're not listening to notes, that's when you can make mistakes.
Yeah.
So how do you feel about that?
You have to listen to the notes.
Yeah.
No notes, no rally. You must listen to your navigator. Okay. So we're coming down into Glen Village.
A wee bit busier than.
And when you're here, the stage is only half over.
I know. There's something about this village, though, Andrew, when you come down into it and you see everybody. It is one of those places where you notice that there are people everywhere.
Yeah.
And there's just
thousands of people.
Such an electric atmosphere when you come to this point here.
Yeah. Well, I don't see the people. I have to keep. You know they're there, but you've got to focus on the job at hand.
Yeah.
And that's to get up through this stage as fast as you can. Around this right-hander. 2006, James and I nearly went off in this next corner here.
Was there shiny tar or something on these bits of road?
Just here.
In 2006, because
Yeah.
I remember coming around this corner.
I went for a sail here.
Yeah, and somebody was in here maybe, or
Yeah.
the next one. This was actually particularly treacherous because it was my first Donegal, and I remember being like, "Jeez, what's going on here?" Because everybody was off here.
Yeah.
But that's obviously the difference between shiny tar and abrasive tar.
Now you're coming into a really, really difficult set of corners here.
Why do you feel they're particularly difficult, Andrew? What, in your words, would have them?
What's that?
Why do you feel like these corners are difficult?
Because this is where all the rocks are.
Okay.
And they all look the same. But they're not the same. See the rocks sitting in there?
Yeah. So do you find that, like, again, this is where the notes would be vital, because if you get distracted trying to remember the road, you will forget where you are.
No, I don't. I can memorise most of the road, but I listen to the notes when I'm racing.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
It is vital, yeah. I know exactly.
This is flat out here. I cut that there.
Just clean over the top of the grass.
Yeah. The day of the rally.
Yes. Not today.
Not today. Yeah, this stage was something else. Now it's flat to the next hairpin.
Yes. Through all these you're looking at the straight line there, Andrew. You're visualising a straight road.
As hard as you can go.
Unbelievable, isn't it? One of the things that always struck me about Donegal, and I suppose to be fair, it could be said about a lot of the events in Ireland because they're such scenic roads, but particularly on the recce, you wouldn't notice it in the rally, but the beauty that surrounds you on these roads. Like, look at the view that we have here at the moment as well.
Yeah, look, Donegal. Or
Muckish, yeah, and Errigal in front of you, and you know, the water over there to the right of Glenloch. Like, it's just, there's just magic everywhere, isn't there? Whether you're driving fast or just looking.
But if you look at now, this year, there's 150,000 people came along to see the rally.
I know.
That's amazing.
Amazing. Like, it's such a huge sporting.
In Donegal,
event.
motorsport is the biggest sport.
Yeah, it is. Donegal and GAA, but I do think motorsport is huge here in relation to anywhere else. And Andrew, like, you love Donegal, you love the rally, but not just the rally. Like, you specifically love this place, and you come here an awful lot. You spend a lot of your time here.
I love it.
What is it about Donegal? Can you word it? Have you ever been able to figure out what it is that pulls you here?
I think everyone is so relaxed here, and that rubs off. You know, I'd be coming from travelling different parts of the world, and I come to Donegal, and I go down to Dunfanaghy and Port na Bla. I just switch off.
Yeah.
And my two boys, Graham and Matthew, they love it as well. Nana. Now wee Robbie, the next generation. Linda loves it. And it's home from home for us.
Yeah.
And everyone is so welcoming. I think the fact that we had competed in the Donegal Rally so many times, it helps.
Yeah.
Because you don't walk down the street without being recognised.
Yes, I would imagine.
And yeah. A lot of my best friends all live here in Donegal. Love it.
I mean, for somebody that is so sort of disciplined and motivated and driven in so many ways, it must be so important for you to have sort of a haven to come to like this.
Oh, you've no idea. You know, I've had great times in Donegal, but I've also had bad times as well, where I had my road accident just up the road gap.
Yeah.
I then had gone off the road a few times in rallies, like Donegal we're going to next. I crashed on it twice.
Yes.
And yeah, but I still come back for more.
You come back for more. Because it must just feel like home at this stage, Andrew.
It's home from home. I would live here all the time now if I could manage it.
Yeah. So Andrew, we are just after coming out of Creaslow there, and we're on the Gap Road, And this road would be particularly significant to you. You had a pretty bad road accident, like in the road car on this road. And if you don't mind talking about it, could you explain to us, you know, not only what happened that day, but like the aftermath and the recovery of this accident?
Well, I was coming out of Letterkenny, as you know, and it was about 9:15 at night, and I was going down to the caravan in Marble Hill, and the mobile phone rang, and I reached down to pick it up. Unfortunately, I hit a rock on the side of the road, which broke the rim in two.
Yes.
Now, I didn't realise the rim was broken too. I just thought I'd got a puncture.
Yeah.
And the car started going sideways from one side of the road to the other, and I'm steering as best I could. And it was like a pendulum effect.
Yes.
But it kept getting worse. I couldn't get the car to slow down.
Okay.
And all of a sudden, it started going sideways, and then side over side, started rolling down the road. And then it flipped around, and then went end over end.
Yeah.
And I'm in the car, and I remember saying clearly, God, please don't hurt me.
Yeah.
I remember saying it. And he said back to me, well, I think you needed a bit of a lesson. Not realising the depth of the lesson that I was about to receive.
So you didn't really even at that point realise how bad it was?
We're just coming up to the place here where we had the accident. I rolled up against that bush there.
Yes.
And you can see where the road is cleared there.
Yeah.
Would you like me to show you where I finished up?
Yes, please, Andrew.
So, there is the scene of the accident over there.
Okay.
So I was coming up over the crest here, and I hit a rock on the left-hand side.
Yeah.
And I started rolling down the road here, and see where the metal post is?
Yes.
I just missed the post by about 3 inches as I was rolling. And then the car went, I think I rolled about 6 times.
And it just kept going on.
Kept going, and then it went end over end. And I remember saying, please God, don't hurt me. And my hands were going all over the place. And the next thing, I finished upside down, tied up against that tree.
Wow.
Not realising my arm is outside.
Yes.
Underneath the roof of the car. And I was stuck. So when I released my belt, I fell down onto the headcloth. And I thought, well, look, it's an accident. All I have to do is get out of here.
Yeah.
But I didn't realise I was trapped. My arm was outside, underneath the roof, and there I lay until I got out around my arm, just like a contortionist. I had to work out how to climb out of the car, and that was very difficult.
Andrew, were you, like, at this point, can you even remember the fear at that point? Like, or are you just so, you know, in survival mode, get out of here, that you can't even feel anything, you're just trying to get out of there?
I remember saying to myself, when I realised my arm was underneath the car, I remember saying to myself, someone's going to find me. You know, someone's going to come up the road and see me upside down.
Yeah.
But no one stopped. All night there was cars coming up and down the road, but they never seen me. And there I was. So probably a half an hour into it, I realised I had to dig my way out of it. And I remember saying, you know, God, please, I don't want somebody else rearing my children.
Aye.
And that gave me the fight and the strength to start digging a hole to get my other hand released.
Yeah.
And I remember watching a TV programme and saying to myself, there was a little mole moling underground. I said, if the mole can do it, I can do it.
Yeah.
And I took the front door keys of my car. I was fit to reach them. And I started digging with them. And my belt. The Sally bushes that are around here all fell down with the car sliding along the ditch. And at the same time, my arm finished up underneath the roof of the car. And I was trapped. Now, people have life-changing situations in their life. That was my life-changing moment. I realised that I had to fight my way out of this.
Yeah.
I didn't know how long it was going to take. I can tell you now it took all of 8.5 hours to dig my way out. And I remember coming out of it. But before that, at about midnight, someone did stop, and I was shouting, but they never heard me. They drove off again. And I realised I'm going to have to dig my way out of this, whatever it takes. And I remember taking the belt off my trousers to pull the Sally rods,
Yeah.
the bushes, and I broke the belt 3 times. I had that much strength
Yeah.
to break a leather belt, and the determination was to get out.
Yeah.
But I probably did more harm than I did good at the time, because I then started stretching this arm. It was broken,
Yeah.
and at one point it was probably 6 inches longer than it should have been. And then when I released the arm and the wrist back in again, didn't go into the broken bones,
Yeah.
and that's when I did most of the damage.
And there was huge damage done to that arm.
Huge damage. But then, every half an hour or so, I'd take a break from digging and I'd start singing.
Right?
And I'd sing Old Danny Boy.
Yeah.
And I'd sing for the full verse, and then I'd start digging again.
Yeah.
And that went on through the night. Like every half an hour I'd start singing
Yeah.
to take my mind away from being trapped. It's an awful feeling,
Oh, I would imagine, Andrew, the fear.
being trapped.
Yeah.
It's a terrible feeling. But the big ticket was to get out.
And
To untrap myself.
all I can think about now is what you were speaking about earlier when you spoke about the tug of war, that to be the person that wins is the person that's there the longest, the person that essentially never gives up and keeps going, keeps holding on. And for you at that moment, holding on was digging.
I would have died if I had given up.
Absolutely.
And there was no fun in that.
No.
I just kept digging, kept singing, kept digging. But at about 3:30, 4 o'clock in the morning, there was this big cloud come over me. And I'm going, oh, it's going to start raining. But it wasn't rain. It was midges.
Right.
They all came to visit me.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, because I was rubbing my face any time the midgie would bite me.
Yeah.
And it turned out they came in their millions and eat me alive. And I remember saying to God at one point, I have no more pain. I actually got to the point where I had no pain. I went through a lot of pain, and then the midges started eating me. And then I realised I had a job to do. But at that point, I had an outer body or inner body feeling of no pain. All pain had left me. And mentally, in total peace of mind for the rest of that journey that night.
You knew what you had to do.
I knew what I had to do, but it was actually the nicest feeling came over me, where there was no more pain.
And I would imagine like that's a very spiritual kind of a feeling,
That's a very spiritual thing.
where no fear, no, as you say, feeling of pain. But at that point, it was just very much, I have a job to do. I know he's with me. We're going to get out of here together. And away you went. And you just kept going.
I kept going until I was fit to feel my hand with this hand. I eventually got in there.
Yeah.
But the Sally rods, when I pushed my left hand in to pull my right hand out,
Yeah.
didn't the Sally rods come in and catch both hands?
Okay.
I was trapped. Both hands were trapped underneath the Sally bushes.
Yeah.
And I said to God, why are you doing this to me? Do you not think I'm in enough trouble? And here I am now trapped with both arms trapped.
Yeah.
And he says, well, you'll work that out. You'll work that out. Hang on, you work it out. How can I work this out? And just like that, I turned my hand one way and the other hand the other way, and it released both hands.
That's amazing.
Because the Sally bush was pushing into my wrist. And once I turned it, it turned away. And the same with the other hand that was trapped.
Yeah.
I was fit to, so I had to turn the bushes in opposite directions and pulled two hands out.
And what was that moment like, Andrew?
That was hooray.
Like, when
I'm like, and I'm kissing my hand and I'm going, I still have you.
it's still here.
I'm going, oh my goodness, am I glad to see you? And I remember using a tie and tying my arm up around here. And then I headed off down this road. And you see the yellow lines? It's 1 mile to the nearest house.
Yes.
And I remember walking the line. I started walking the white line. And then I realised if I faint or collapse, someone's going to drive over me.
Yes.
Whereas if I walk the yellow line,
You're on the side of
if I faint or collapse, I'm likely to fall into the hedgerow. And I walked the yellow line for 1 mile to a lovely gentleman called Hugh McGinley and his sister Margaret and her husband. They were home from Scotland, and I walked to his house, and I remember hammering the door, and he told me to go away because I was covered in clay. He thought you didn't know what I was.
A scary sight, really.
I was a scary sight arriving to him. And then when he realised that I was injured, he opened the door, and his sister looked at me and she goes, oh my goodness. And she went right back upstairs again, took the bed clothes off her bed, and down and put them around me. That was the nicest feeling ever of comfort.
Yeah, yeah.
For someone's warm clothing to be put around you, having spent 8.5 hours in the gap.
And I mean, like, the fallout from that, Andrew, must have been insane. Just for you mentally, like, I mean, you mentioned that, you know, you had to be taught a lesson, but like I would imagine for a long time you just had to get through and get out of it physically, you know, and get yourself better. But what was the lesson once you were at a point where you could realise it?
The lesson probably was to learn to be more relaxed with life, with myself, and try and do more good around your life.
Okay.
And that's what I did.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was a serious lesson.
Yeah. A very serious lesson.
And, you know, after that I remember going, Hugh McGinley took me in his car to the hospital, and I was in so much pain at this point. And he would only drive at 15 mile an hour the whole way there. And I said, you, when he got to the top of the mountain in Letterkenny, going downhill, I says, you could nearly freewheel from here. And I was saying that, hoping he'd speed up a little bit. And he says, no, I don't want to hurt you.
Oh,
he was so gentle, so kind. I love that man dearly. He's such a nice man.
And in many ways, you know, they saved your life that night.
Saved my life. Saved my arm.
You had saved it, but if it hadn't been for that house and them people driving you safely to the hospital, like,
I was in a bad place.
So Andrew, I would imagine it's not too easy to revisit that site.
Well, I have to say it gave me a little bit of a feeling of shouldn't been in there, but it's no, it's okay. I always salute it every time I come past it because it was still kind to me.
Yeah.
It didn't take my life.
No, it let you out again, didn't it?
It let me out.
And that, you know, there was definitely a wave of emotion that washed past you, or over you completely whenever you were in there. But you were saying that most of the time when you drive this road, it doesn't really. You acknowledge it, but it doesn't really.
I acknowledge the road. I acknowledge the accident. I acknowledge Hugh McGinley's wee house where I went to that night.
Yeah.
And yeah, no, that touched a bit of a nerve in me in there, so it did.
And could you say, was it a positive or a negative? Was it an overwhelming kind of like, wow, I made it through, or wow, that was a tough moment for me?
I felt that I shouldn't have been in there. I just felt it. I felt it was just brought the whole thing back to me.
Yeah.
And I probably, I haven't really talked about it before, have I?
No, I mean you're always very honest about it, and you acknowledge that the accident happened, of course, and you speak about your recovery. I would say quite often, but it's a very different thing to actually think about the emotion of something, and to actually relive something again.
Yeah.
And I would imagine like that's, you know, even in your tone of voice there and sort of the way you were describing the feeling of being trapped, like that was a hard place to be, and it would be a very difficult memory to go back to.
Yeah, you're some things are better let go. That's one of them there.
Yeah.
I'm lucky to be alive.
Mm-hmm.
I'm so pleased that I'm able to show you where the accident took place, but I wouldn't be going looking for it anymore. No. Leave it behind.
And you mentioned the changes, Andrew, and how it did change your life. Can you strike me as a very silver lining to every cloud type of a person. We already spoke about some of the lessons, but can you maybe speak about some of the things that you know for a fact positively changed in your life after that accident?
Yes, I probably started taking life more serious. And after the accident, when I was taken to Letterkenny Hospital, the injury was so bad that I then had to go. We were heading for Belfast to meet a Mr. Calderwood at the time to work on the injury, and we got as far as Derry, Baltnagalvin, and I went in to see a surgeon there, Sean Simpson, and I remember Linda, my wife, saying to him, well, we were planning to head to Belfast to meet Mr. Calderwood to try and get the injury worked on. And he said to me at that time, he says, well, Mr. Calderwood is one of the top 2 surgeons in Northern Ireland, and I happen to be the other one. And he says, you don't have time to go to Belfast.
That's the kind of confidence you want, isn't it?
And I'm going, you're my man.
Yeah.
You get on with it. And it was only years later when I was going to theatre shortly after that for him to work on it, and he worked on my arm for about 7 hours. On the way down to theatre, he says to me, Andrew, is there any questions before we go into theatre here? I says, yes, I have one question for you. How long do you think it'll be before I can go back rallying again? And he goes, what? I says, well, I won the Donegal rally there a few weeks ago, and I'm just wondering when I'd be back out rallying again. And he just looked at me and he goes, He says, that's down to you. That'll be down to you. Little did I realise what he was planning on doing. It was only 5 years later, I called in to see him one day to present him with a book because someone had created a motorsport catalogue of a lot of my wins through the different internationals. And I was giving it to him as a present. And he took me into his office and said in front of his staff, oh, this is the guy, Andrew Nesbitt, who had the bad car accident, and this is my injury. And he says, and the nurse says, is this the guy you're going to amputate? You're going to amputate his arm? And then you decided to give it a go? And I just couldn't believe what I was hearing. I never knew that he was planning to amputate my arm. Whew, wasn't that a lucky moment in time?
That was a lucky one. And isn't it funny that like there is truth to the saying like that less is more sometimes. You know, the less amount of information you can have, the better it can be for you at times.
Well, I didn't know for years that that's what he was planning to tell me. But I asked him, when could I race again? And that changed him as well, forever. Yeah. Because he's talked about this injury all over the world.
And it was your determination that made him decide not to. He knew you needed that. For many more reasons, of course, but like when he spoke about the only question that you had, or when he spoke to you and the only question you had was about competing again, he knew how important it was.
Well, it changed his life as well, because he had been able to speak about the injury all over the world. He told me he spoke about it in New York and Australia, Germany, and all over the world. And I think the point he was making, when you think there is nothing more we can do, maybe there is.
Yeah.
And that's what changed his mind. He decided to give me one more chance with my arm. And I had to get a lot of physio twice a day for a long time. Linda, fortunately, was a physiotherapist and worked really hard on my arm.
Yeah.
And I finished up with a claw hand after it. And I had to rehabilitate and get that all working again.
Yeah.
And now I have perfect use out of both hands.
Do you ever have any pain in it now, Andrew?
No pain. I have 12 screws and 2 plates holding it together. Yeah, but other than that, everything's great. Every time I go through the airport, the alarm goes off.
I would say it's a bit of a torture for you.
But other than that, everything's good.
Brilliant. Well, that's just one of those stories, Andrew, again, of strength and resilience. And again, you know, how that strength and resilience not only got you through, but it clearly inspired him to think outside the box. You know, you weren't giving up, even in the midst of all that trauma and, you know, the darkest hour, essentially, of kind of any person could go through, you know, and you're still thinking about life after. You know, it's not just you're just thinking to yourself, wow, like the surgeon's going to fix my arm, yes, but not only is he going to fix it, he's going to fix it so well that I can go rallying again. You know, that's the level of faith and hope you had in the outcome. And
the outcome met all of that criteria. Unfortunately for me, the following year I did go back rallying and I crashed in every race. Every race I crashed.
What do you think?
And I was leading every race and I crashed.
Have you any idea, would you think deeply about that kind of stuff? Have you ever been able to figure out like why specifically that year you could lead everything and then crash out? Have you ever connected the two?
Oh yeah, I know exactly why I crashed. I was trying too hard with an arm that wasn't capable of steering the steering wheel.
Okay.
I hadn't enough strength built back into my arm.
So what was a case of you probably needed more time?
I needed more time, but I didn't take more time. I just, I remember saying to the consultant, I said, look, if I'm back out racing in Galway, for Galway in February next year, I'll be happy. And he says, that's down to you. And I was racing in Galway, but I went through the wall.
Yeah.
I hadn't strengthened my arm to turn the steering wheel.
Wow. And Andrew, a question that I have actually always wanted to ask you specifically about rallying and the accident was, how did you not have a fear of cars and crashing in general after that, let alone jump into a rally car again, where it's quite possible that you could get into an accident?
Well, crashing is part of the sport, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
You know, you can't go out saying I'm not going to crash. If you're going to win a rally, you have to be close to the limit, and sometimes you get caught out.
Yeah.
And if that happens, well then, unfortunately, you may have a crash or two along the way. I crashed every race, and I only finished one rally that year, which was 1997, and it was the Ulster Rally, and Rory Kennedy was sitting alongside me. But even then, we crashed in that rally. We went over the hedge and into the field and back out through the gate, knocked the gate down and finished the rally and were third. I was so pleased.
Yeah.
I felt I was back again.
Yeah.
But yes, that was part of the recovery, wasn't it? That was part of the character building.
Absolutely. And I mean, like, but was there not a moment where you thought to yourself, Jesus, I can't do this? Like, I got so lucky that I was saved that night, and I got out, that, you know, my time hadn't come. I cannot rally again. Did that ever enter your mind?
No.
It just wasn't happening.
No.
You had to rally in that moment.
No, that was part of the character, was to get back on the horse and go again.
Okay.
No, you never give up. And I would always say to people, you know, if dark days, talk to someone and try and be at peace with yourself.
Yeah.
Because there will be days like that.
And did you talk through the trauma of that time, the physical and the mental trauma of being in such an accident and having to get back out to a competitive state?
Well, that's two questions, isn't it? One was the physical. I remember Sean Simpson saying to me, Andrew, it's going to take 365 days before you have all your feeling back. That's 365, why not 364? It was a millimetre per day, was what he was saying. And the injury from the middle of the arm to the top of the finger was roughly 12 inches. Yeah.
Okay.
And he told me at the time that'll be a millimetre per day recovery.
Okay.
With the nerve injury I had. And you could nearly have timed it to the day. It took it all of that time to get the feeling back into my hand fully.
Yeah. And it's back now.
Yeah.
And you never look back. And it's you know, at the time you wouldn't have known it, but all these years later, you can look back and you can actually see that, yeah, you know, my mantra of not giving up works, because you had huge success in rallying and in life after that date.
After all of that, yes.
Yeah. And so very much, you know, a sign of things to come, or things can only get better, that kind of attitude and mentality.
Unfortunately, motorsport's dangerous. It can be dangerous, and the only thing you can do is take as many safety precautions along the way as you can. Your belts, your helmets, your hands device, have the right car, have the right equipment in the car. That's all you can do, and once all of that's in place, you're there to go as hard as you can.
Yeah.
That's what motorsport's about. Formula One's no different. And unfortunately, sometimes there are accidents along the way. But for the best part, it's a great sport.
Yeah.
Great people in it.
Aye. It's an excellent sport, it really is. And a lot of the time, Andrew, people talk about camaraderie and essentially the friendships and the family that you end up meeting through rallying. And it really is a gorgeous community, isn't it?
It is. Like, I've been very lucky. I've met some great people along the way. I've had a lot of good support over the years. My sponsors were very good to me. You know, from Subaru Ireland to Cuisine de France, which was Ronan McNamee, Philip White Tires, Jean Megan, Toni Kelly and Letterkenny. All of these people who sponsored me over the years were very kind to me, and I hope they got something out of it in return. That's what I would hope for.
Yeah, and I know for a fact they did. You know, the joy of a business person seeing their name on a car that wins the amount of times that you won is probably a feeling that really only you could match as the actual driver winning.
Yeah, well, as I said to you earlier, I really competed against myself, and if I wasn't quick enough, then I wasn't good enough. You know, that I had to be quick enough to give the results I did. Yeah,
and there's no giving up at that point. Like you just have to keep going. You have to just keep fighting.
Sometimes we could have went a little bit easier. You know,
I would say.
We could have maybe slowed down a little bit, but you know, the year that we won every stage in Donegal, I never knew the times. James never said to me at any point, Andrew, we're leading every stage here. At no point did he ever tell me.
Is that something you asked James not to do?
That's something that I never really wanted to know, other than was I quickest in that stage?
Yeah.
That's all I wanted to know.
Yeah.
By how much didn't really matter.
Okay. As long as you were top of the pops.
As long as he was happy, you could always tell when he was happy. There was a little smile there.
Aye.
I'd call it little cork smile.
Little cork smile.
Yeah. It was great.
And again, going back to the friendship side of things, Andrew, like, you know, you mentioned earlier on that there was actually a point in your life where you struggled to get a navigator, but you know, the stars aligned again, and James O'Brien jumps in beside you, and you know, alright, an incredible partnership in terms of the sport, but like the friendships, the bonds, the relationships that form because of this.
Well, I think our lives changed after we met, because we had such an amazing relationship, and we understood each other so well, and then we won so many rallies together. It was just, as James said to me one day when we met, our lives changed forever.
Yeah.
As a result of meeting.
Yeah.
And don't get me wrong, I had a great navigator in Brian Murphy. He was a super guy. But when James sat on there, you know, we just took it to another level, pace.
Yeah.
But then again, technology, the cars change as well.
Yeah. And
new money, new goods.
It's one of those things too, Andrew, like where when it's meant to be, it's meant to be. You know, in one way you could say, oh, you know, I couldn't find a navigator for a while, or you could turn that on its head and say, well, actually, you just were waiting to meet the right one.
They were all good people. They're all good navigators. What I had to do was actually slow down for James.
Right.
And he asked me to be. He says, "Look at Andrew, I want you to try and be fifth today." And I had to go through that process of going slow until he allowed me to go faster.
Okay.
So it was, I think, 3 rallies before he would allow me to go flat out.
And was that a respect thing?
That was him saying, "You're going to do it my way, or we're not doing it at all." And I had to agree to it.
Okay. Which is huge, because obviously he can trust you. Once you do what he says, he can trust you to drive whatever way you want to then.
I remember him saying to me, "Andrew, no, I don't want you being second today, or first. I want you to be third." Right. So I had to go through that torture with him to first of all get his respect, and then let him have time to understand how I operate.
Yeah. And the other thing too, Andrew, I would imagine that actually did help you to hone in the skill of actually pulling back the driving.
Correct.
Because that's a difficult thing to do. We talk about it all the time when guys are leading rallies, and they kind of have to stay safe, but it's actually one of the kind of most dangerous things you can do mentally, because you have to be on it in order to sort of be that focused and safe on the stages. Like it's harder to actually drive slow.
Well,
But it's a skill that you must have.
You have to learn to pace yourself.
Yes.
And James and I probably perfected that over the years.
Yeah.
Where the likes of the Donegal rally, for example, we'd split it down into different phases.
Mm-hmm.
And the Friday phase would be, we'd see what the pace is like. In other words, we'd try and be in the top 4 or 5. If we were leading on Friday, well, then we had to keep going.
Yeah.
If we weren't leading, we had to give chase the following day.
Mm-hmm.
And Saturday would be the day that I would start chasing.
Yeah.
Or hunting, as we talk about. Hunt the opposition down.
Hunt is probably a better word, yeah.
And yeah, it was an art in itself to be able to pace yourself.
Yes, it's a huge discipline, really. A different level of discipline. Because we all know what we're capable of. But to be able to hold yourself back, you know, a little bit is actually a very difficult thing to do. So a very strategic pairing by the sounds of it.
It was amazing. Yes, it was an amazing pairing for both of us. And then the cars and the technology that we had was at another level as well.
Mm-hmm.
We were very fortunate to have the best cars for Pro Drive over the years. Right up until, we'll say, 96, 98.
Yeah.
We had the Toyota Celica. But before that, I had Mark II Escorts and 6R4 Metros and all of that. And you know, history tells you I had some good days and some bad days with those cars as well.
And you know, one of the things I've kind of realised over the last couple of years, and even you know, in podcasts that I've been listening to recently, like one of the things that has kind of stood out to me the most recently is how it's the darker days, the tougher moments, the moments that you aren't so delighted about. That's actually where a lot of the learning is. That's where a lot of the growth is. And you know, one of the things I suppose Colin McRae always talked about was going past the limit to find the limit. You know, going past it will normally be not an easy thing to deal with. We'll go on around to the left here, Andrew, and go to, we start Atlantic Drive, I think, from the church side.
Okay.
But yeah, you know, that your learning is in the darker hour. You know, if you can pick yourself up again, that's actually where the strength comes from. And you can't figure out where the limit is until you pass it. But in passing it, you've got dark moments that you kind of need to take.
Well, the more you practice, the better you get.
Yeah.
There's that old saying.
That's true.
So the more I practiced, I think the better I got. And then you got to a point where this is my pace, this is our pace, and this is what we want to achieve every time we come out.
Mm-hmm.
And it's knowing where that level is
Yes.
and being able to manage it. So I would have always tried to be around 95% of the 100%.
Yeah.
Because if you're 100%, you're on the edge.
Yeah.
So you just need to be 3 or 4 or 5% below the 100% line and stay there.
Yeah.
For as long as you can, because that's where you're going to do the least damage.
Yes. Exactly right.
It's beautiful.
And again, Andrew, we're just, this is the beauty of Donegal, really, isn't it? You know, we're looking at these roads ahead and these stages ahead, and we're thinking, right, we love driving these roads, but also, as I mentioned earlier, you're just surrounded by beauty at all times in Donegal.
Yeah. So this is the start of the stage here.
Yeah. And just moving off from here it's just pure magic, isn't it? Pulling through the gears, trying to get up to speed.
Fantastic.
And again, there's just that beautiful abrasive tarmac, Andrew.
Look how beautiful it is.
I know. And that's the thing, like during the rally you're not supposed to notice it, but I mean, look at that.
Yeah. I've never really looked at it much.
To be fair, I would drive these roads, not regularly, but like over the last 20 years.
This crest here catches it, a lot of people out through that hedge.
But everything about it, like, is just, even the quaint wee houses around here, like, it's just pure magic. I have to say, I think this is one of my favourite stages, Andrew.
I love this stage.
Yeah. Very technical, but it's brilliant.
When the boys in the R5 cars they're so nimble through here.
The R5 cars are probably just perfectly built for this type of road.
Perfect for the Atlantic Drive.
Andrew, the wee
what?
the wee magpie on the road there, did you salute it?
I did.
Would you have a superstition with magpies?
Absolutely.
Do you?
Yeah.
Brilliant.
Did you notice me?
I did, surely. And do you know how I notice it? Well, my whole family does it as well, but I actually am the opposite with magpies. They're my good luck charm.
Right.
So
okay.
if I see one, I'm fine with it. But the more I see, the more luck I'm going to have.
Right, okay.
And I had to turn that on its head, because if I ever saw a single magpie, it nearly would have upset me for the day.
Okay.
The salute didn't work. So it's one of those wee superstitions that I've always had as well. And this corner here now has been
Now, we better.
magic for me. Just the detail of your driving here is just unbelievable, isn't it?
It's an amazing bit of road. We need to get this Jeep through it.
The Jeep wouldn't be built for roads like this, Andrew. There's a few wee hedges that are getting
Once we get through this bit, it's pretty okay. Rocks sitting everywhere. We're able to take you out. I'll go left here. Sometimes they go right.
I think I've only ever done it left.
Yeah.
The road had just been retarred or something, wasn't that it, Andrew? Because I think, from memory, on the recce it hadn't been retarred.
Yeah.
And then it's just in the distance now, there was just this one patch of shiny tar.
What?
And we had to do the hairpin right. And whatever grip we had along here, it was just gone straight into the wall.
Well, I nearly threw the rally away on the last stage. I went straight on.
Yeah.
But managed not to drop the wheels over the edge.
Yes.
I put it in reverse, and then I actually drove the rest of the stage at a slower pace. Because I knew the guy behind me was going to have to pass me to win the rally.
So you had that cushion, we'll say,
Yes.
that made you feel a wee bit more secure in it.
Like, I come up here, come round the corner, and then I hit the throttle again.
Yeah, even though we're turning right, you still. And that wall is probably what saved it.
That's where I slid in there.
Yeah, that was where I slid in. And I was that stunned, Andrew, that I nearly forgot to put it into reverse. I think Joe had to tell me to actually move, because I just was that shook that I hit the car at the last stage. And then you do a couple of rallies and you realise actually hitting the car every 5 minutes is kind of nearly.
Look how abrasive this stage is.
It's unbelievable, isn't it? Parts of the stage are so abrasive, aren't they? But it's just so flowing, Andrew.
This is a very fast stage, believe me.
Yeah.
This is what Donegal's all about.
Yeah, and there's constant work. You never take a rest in here.
There's no let up on this one.
No.
So this is one of the places where I crashed one time.
Right. How or where or... So this long
Dipped
straight.
through here, and I remember hitting the dip. And here I was trying to straighten the corners up. And I bounced there, and I went straight off there.
Right.
And finished
Over on the
in there. And I got 2 punctures, and I remember going up this lane here, and there was no one there, and there was a tractor, so I borrowed the tractor.
Oh, this is the famous tractor.
This is the
moment.
tractor.
Okay, yeah.
I borrowed the tractor, I jump started with a screwdriver, and came down and into the field, pulled the rally car out, and finished the rally.
Brilliant. Did you leave the tractor back?
I left the tractor sitting in the field running. I was in trouble over that.
Because I would say they wouldn't have minded you borrowing the tractor. You needed to get out of there, Andrew.
I need to finish the rally. Excellent. And there's a guy up here with a video camera, and all I could hear him shouting was, "He's stealing the tractor."
Stealing the tractor. And how did you rectify it after getting in trouble?
I had to go back out and apologise to the lady because I drove over a clothesline as well. Did a right royal mess of her line.
I'm sure she
I'm
forgave
not pulling
you.
in here because there's a rock in there. Okay, there we go.
The benefits of knowing
the roads.
Like the back of your hand, Andrew.
If I had my World Rally car here, there's no reason why we couldn't do the Donegal International Rally again.
Is it something that is niggling at you, Andrew?
It's niggling at me right now.
Yes. And that's probably because you're on stage.
What?
That's probably because you're on the stage.
Because I'm on the stage.
Yes. But does it niggle at you in general?
Not really.
No.
No. I'm happy with my lot.
Uh-huh. But if it's sitting there, do you think you will take it back out at some point again?
I think I will, yes.
Have you?
Yeah.
In fact, you know.
I think I will, yes.
And tell us, do you know what event or what kind of events or what
We're talking about doing the Race of Champions.
Oh, brilliant! Yeah, yeah.
That should be the next appearance of the rally car.
Mm-hmm. Amazing.
There's McClatchy's corner.
McClatchy shed is right.
The famous McClatchy. A lot of people have hit that.
A lot of people have gone and broken those wee doors straight through. And I mean, again, Andrew, like such a phenomenal view. Beautiful part of Donegal.
It is absolutely beautiful.
Stunning. What's funny about that shed is I feel like anybody that knows anything about the Donegal or Atlantic Drive specifically knows that shed, don't they? They know
it's the most famous
that corner.
shed in Donegal. A lot of people have visited it over the years.
They have. And then I always feel like this part of the stage, Andrew, is so different to the beginning.
It's very, very abrasive, this section of road.
And this almost feels like a coastal sort of cliff road in somewhere in, mainland Europe. Like, this is incredible.
Absolutely. We'll pull in there.
Andrew, we're at the start of Donegal.
Yes.
And like, when you look up, it is just so incredible.
I love this stage. James counted me down.
And just going.
Complete smile on my face, you see it? Ear to ear.
And is it memories flooding back now, Andrew, or is it pure joy at this being able to drive again today?
The speed that you go up here at. Unfortunately, one of the days I came up here up to Wilhurst Bend, just round the corner.
Yes.
You can see it straight ahead, and I was doing my usual right side.
Yeah.
And put my foot on the brake, and the car just went off. Took its own notion and went straight in there at 129 mile an hour.
Mad.
I couldn't do a thing about it.
And you're laughing now. Did you laugh at the time, or were you fuming?
Well, I was laughing because I didn't hit anything. Didn't damage the car. I just went off the road. And
it's a nightmare to try and get it out from there. Like that.
And I just remember walking back down the stage going, and the people were all applauding me, well done, like what, well done I crashed, or well done for the speed I entered the corner at, or I don't know what they were giving me the big oh, and I just clapped them back and said, well, thank you for being here. That's what I would say.
But like,
without supporters, there's no rally, is there?
No, and that's half the crack, really. Like, is the excitement that is in everybody's like laughter whenever someone spins or whatever.
Look at that's for a stage, my goodness. Right side, left 18 tightens into middle, right 5 over crest. Yo, midair.
Happiest you've ever been, Andrew.
Look at this.
Road.
How crazy is this?
This is crazy. Like when you sit in a road car and actually look at this is mental.
But you want to... And here, I told you earlier, I crashed twice on the stage.
Yes.
Brad Murphy and I were coming down around here and we hit water just coming up to this crest here. And I slid wide just here.
Yeah.
I'm holding on and I take 14 concrete posts out just there. A very funny thing happened. We were there, stuck, going nowhere, 3 wheels off the car. We get out anyway and there was a wheel lying across here. And I picked it up and I just threw it. And didn't it roll and roll and roll and it went over the cliff edge and disappeared. I'm going, well, I wasn't expecting that to happen, but it did anyway. Half an hour later, 45 minutes later, I could see a gentleman coming walking up round the side of the cliff. It probably took him a half an hour to get up to us. He says, you didn't happen to lose a wheel, did you? I said, we lost 3 wheels, but I threw one out of the road and it rolled and it went over the cliff edge. He says, yes. I was fishing at the bottom of the cliff in a boat and it near killed me.
Oh.
And he says it bounced 3 times and then disappeared. And we never knew he was there. Like that's a 1,000 feet down there.
And I mean, all I'm thinking of here, Andrew, is like, okay, there's a lot of rushes and stuff here on the left hand side and weeds and things like that.
There's a lot of concrete posts there, believe you me. Well, there was. I took 14 of them out.
But there's a drop there, like, that is shocking. But again, ridiculously enough, it's not something we think about when we're driving.
No. Keep an eye on the road. That's it.
That's all you have to do. Your ability to be able to just move on, Andrew, and forget.
Look at this here. The car would always go light across that crest. And you had to have your line perfectly correct.
Yeah.
It's a long way down.
A long way down. Like when you sit here as a passenger or in a road car at all and you actually look at it, it's crazy. But again, typical Donegal, it is so stunning up here, isn't it, Andrew?
We'll have to stop here. Look at that for a view. It's not just the business.
Isn't it magic?
And yet we will drive these roads at 120, 130 mile an hour.
I know.
Okay. Now, can you imagine taking that? Oh, they put bales in there this year.
You can actually, so I'm not sure if that'll be visible on the GoPro, but you can actually see the remains of the markings where the bales were this year. Which is mad, because that's very stereotypical of a coast road in Donegal. You're going to have bale marks.
I can remember coming around these corners, just the car just sliding the whole way around.
I know. And then this beautiful sheep in the middle of the road. But again, stereotypical Donegal, isn't it?
You're on the rev limiter coming down here the whole way.
Yeah.
And all you have to do is stay in the middle of the road. It's left one, tightens over crest. There we go.
It's magic that you can remember it, remember your own notes here too, Andrew.
Yeah.
And then there's the few bales here as well. And I remember an awful lot going on down around to the left on this road. You can cut across here, obviously. This
the stage goes that way sometimes.
Yeah.
But I prefer it this way.
This way, yeah. I love it this way now. I think this way is incredible.
They used to take you in this little road here. Here I went in 2006, we were brought in this way.
All up to the right.
And then you go right here. And then you go left.
And again, that is to slow us down.
What?
That's to slow us down, because the average speed on this stage is insane. Like you have already mentioned that you reckon this is the fastest stage in the world.
The year I had the slicks on, I come round this corner here, come up to this next one, and I nearly left it too late, and she went sliding. It's a 500-foot drop over there.
Yeah. Matthew Wilson went down there. Do you remember
Just
that?
there?
Yeah, yeah. We were actually standing, myself, Dad and Jean Megan were standing in the field across the road there. When
Were
that happened.
you?
Yeah. I'll never forget it. It was mental. Because it is just the last thing you were expecting to happen there. But it obviously is. It's one of those corners like where if you forget it, you know, if you forget or you're not listening and you have a moment on it, you know what it is. It tightens a lot more than you think, doesn't it?
I never realised it. It was such a drop until I looked at it one day.
Andrew, one of the amazing things about your personality is that you can close the door on the thing when it's done. You know, you were just speaking about how when the accident is done, you step out of the car and you forget about it, you move on. And that just has to be a really sort of helpful tool when it comes to just general tough moments in life at all. You know, take the lessons, learn them, be grateful for, you know, surviving it and the wisdom you have on the other side, and just move on. But coming out of accidents like on Will Hare's Bend, that has to just be such a nice quality to have in your personality whenever you can just move on, because that could drive somebody else demented for weeks or months or years maybe.
I'd be thinking, when's the next race?
Yeah. Forget about this one. Let's move forward.
There's nothing you can do about this one.
And would it be fair to say that that's a motto of yours in life, or do you have a favourite motto?
Yeah, that is probably it. Can't do anything about it. Move on.
Brilliant. Just keep moving forward. That's all you can do. Andrew, this has been absolutely fantastic. I knew this would be a very special episode anyway, because you're such an honest person in general, but you're a character as well. Like, you know, you love a bit of crack, so I always knew that the conversation and the stories would be excellent. But to be able to sit in the car with you and do these stages has just been absolutely magic, and I have a feeling that everybody that watches or listens will feel like they're here with us, you know, and it's such a treat. So I just want to thank you so much for being here with us today and for giving us your time.
Well, you know what? It's a pleasure. I'm on holiday anyway, and what better way to spend the day with you, having a chat and reminiscing about my life.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Andrew, it's been brilliant. Thank you so much.
Toni, it's been amazing. Thank you so much.
Pleasure.